Views and opinions of any of the guests of After Hours AM are not necessarily the views and opinions of After Hours AM, its hosts, its staff, or any of its affiliates.
Welcome to the After Hours program.
Are you
Now broadcasting live from the After Hours AM studio, Joel Sturgis and Eric Olsen.
And we had a devil child. Devil child got glowing eyes. The boy that hated and that well. Devil child got so survive. My baby had a devil child. She got horns on her head and a head on fire. Demon seed at night, breed a wish of his eye. A dead child of guns, blood, a favorite drink. A child to the devil's card. Devil child gotta go in.
And good evening, everybody. Welcome to this edition of After Hours AM. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis, and right along with me, hopefully,
Eric Olsen.
Hey, Eric, how you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing pretty well. And you?
I am doing just fine. I am thumbing through yet again Patrick Hemstreet, his new book. We're going to be talking to him, of course, top of next hour, God Peak, The God Peak, which is actually a follow-up book from The God Wave. So it's kind of like a science-y, sci-fi, thriller, horror, all that kind of stuff, all wrapped into one, and he will be joining us top of next hour. It'll be a lot of fun to pick his brain about neuroscience.
Exactly.
And how it can run amok. And I'm really thinking that it's going to be the beginning of Skynet.
It always runs amok. When will they ever learn? When
Yes.
Will they ever
enjoy a good
learn?
mucking, don't they? So, yeah.
Frankensteinian.
Exactly.
You
Yeah.
play God,
Yeah, well,
you suffer the consequence.
Yeah, been there, done that. Oh, never do that again. But, yeah, the week has flown right by. It's every Thursday. We've had a whole jam-packed week of broadcasting. Tuesday we kicked it off, of course, with Adam Seltzer is on the show. You know, we talked about Chicago haunts and ghosts and all that kind of good stuff. That is up for download, of course, over at our Podomatic account, as well as over at iHeartRadio. So you can go over there and grab that, take a listen. Very, very interesting. Last night we talked about Charlottesville, which is surprisingly different from what the media has out there, how things went down in a lot of ways. So, yeah, we talked to a couple people that had their boots on the ground, so to speak, and they saw it firsthand. You're going, if you haven't heard that show yet, I'm not going to spoil it for you guys. Go over, download that one as well. Really interesting to see how things hit the fever pitch so fast.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing. It was remarkable. We had two local journalists. One actually quite well known nationally. He's also an author, but he's based in Charlottesville. And both of them were actually on the scene Saturday and have been following it ever since. In fact, the call that we had in from one of the two, from Jackson last night, he was literally at the Hush Hush event that took place at the university, the tribute to the late Miss Higher. So that was really interesting because he was literally leaving that procession to come and talk with us. So it was actual drama in real life. And yeah, we got some really good background, kind of sociological about the town and about how the white nationalists and alt-right in its many forms fits into the town, which is not very well at all, actually. And most of the people there were imported. He said maybe a dozen of the protesters, of the right-leaning protesters, were actually from the town. and a much larger number of the counter-protesters are from the town. But it's a college town. It's a relatively progressive town in the South. So, yeah, it was really very interesting. So check out last night's After Hours AM, the Criminal Code, True Crime, and that was extremely timely, I must say, since the events are still ongoing.
Yeah, they are, as we speak, and I'm sure we'll be catching up with both those gentlemen down the road for some updates as things unfold. And, of course, last Thursday, I know everyone tuned in for the big remote from the Palmer House. It was a very interesting time, I must say, at that old hotel.
Yeah, it's always a little bit stressful making sure all the bugs are worked out on the technical end, but I think it worked out pretty well.
Yeah.
And lots of real good guests. Sure, you had a lot of good interviews there in that first hour. Sounded like it was going to be quite a weekend of interesting paranormal activity.
Yeah, we had a jam-packed bar, of course, and Minnesota Ghost Box. They gave away a brand new SB7, which, of course, is the spirit box that most everybody uses these days to communicate with the other side. So people won a few prizes, talked, hobnobbed with people. It was actually a really, really enjoyable time. Now, of course, the Palmer House, you may know it from Ghost Adventures. They were there. They did a full episode at Sauk Center, Minnesota. And it also is the home of Nobel Prize-winning author Sinclair Lewis. In fact, he lived and worked in the Palmer. So it was very interesting to hear about him and, of course, the ghostly activities that I actually experienced quite a bit of my own.
Why don't you recap one of them, say?
Yeah, well, the first night I got in, of course, you're done the remote. I would say this is, didn't get to bed till like 3 a.m. because the good people of Sauk Center kept me up, and let's just say we had a few spirits of the unghostly kind. And I made it up to my room. I would say it's about 3:30 in the a.m. I was hearing, and I was on the third floor, room 15, which actually turns out was Sinclair Lewis's room, where he did live, and that's a whole nother story unto itself. But about 3:30 in the a.m., right around 4 o'clock, somewhere in there, I heard the running of children, and I knew that there were no children booked into the Palmer, as far as I knew anyway. I didn't know if someone had come in and got a room or what's going on, because the hotel was pretty much being dominated by the Things That Go Bump Minnesota event. So there wasn't too many rooms being left to be had for the general public. So I understood that, wow, this may be paranormal. So after about 20 minutes, I got my courage up. You know how that is, Eric. You hear something, you just know is it right, and you're like, should I or shouldn't I? So I stuck my head out the window.
I guess so.
Stuck my head out the door, opened the door, stuck it out there, and there was nobody in the hall. So I politely said, hey, you know what? I realize you guys live here, and I'm just a visitor. But if you guys would keep it down, that would be really cool. I'm tired, had a long day of driving, had a lot of things going on. That would be so cool. So what did they decide to do, you might ask? These ghosts, after I politely asked them in my nice, fatherly voice to keep it down, they did. They did. They were running as hard as before, but they tiptoe across my door.
Well, that was nice.
That was nice. So they'd run, tiptoe, run. Run, tiptoe, run. And I got up the next day.
You put the fear of God in
Well, I thought maybe someone was playing a prank. You know, maybe the first time at the Palmer, kind of hazing, just messing with me, because that is one of the most frequently reported things that happens to guests that don't know it's haunted is they hear the running of kids, and they get up the next morning and say, yeah, it would have been great had those kids not ran over the place. So I thought, maybe this is just them having some fun at my expense. So the next morning I got up and I went and talked to Kelly Priest, who is the owner of the Palmer. Very, very nice lady. We had her on air with us, of course, Eric. And she's owned that for, over 10 years. And I talked with her in private, wondering if maybe there was some shenanigans she knew about. She turned and looked at me in all seriousness and said, oh, well, you heard what everybody else is hearing when they stay on the third floor. I said, really? And she said, yep, those are our resident ghosts. In fact, if you were to go down that hall a little bit further, we have what we call a toy room, full of nothing but their toys. And quite often, things go crazy in there.
They go bump in the night.
They go bump in the night. The kids
the
love to
day.
play. And then, of course, Just one more quick story. It was second night there. Didn't hear any of the running. That was done. Evidently, they were done with me. They had their fun. About 2 a.m, I heard the loudest scream. A woman screaming just out of nowhere. Just a like blood-curdling scream. And that took place for a few minutes and then quit. Following morning at breakfast, I asked everybody, hey, did anyone hear a scream last night? I mean, is it just me being overly sensitive because I know I'm in a haunted location? Maybe my mind is manufacturing things. And everybody all said at once, no, we heard it too.
So who is that?
Nobody. The room it allegedly came from was vacant.
Well, I mean, who is it really?
We don't know. No one knows. They have some ideas. There was one ghost in there, and they don't quite know her name 100%. But she allegedly had an affair with a married man back in the day, and he would visit Sauk Center on his travels. Well, she didn't know he was married when he hooked up with her. She ended up getting pregnant by the guy, and turns out she finds out he's married, and so what does she do? She kills herself.
Arg.
While she's pregnant, and so the legend has it that that's her screaming in agony, finding out that her lover has betrayed her.
Arg.
So, yeah, a lot of hauntings like that. And then there's the basement. There's lots of places. The Palmer. It lived up to its #1 most haunted hotel in America, if you ask me. And judging by what I firsthand experienced, and plus I'm still going over the evidence, got some really good stuff out of that as well that I will release at a later date.
Phantasmo. Well, it sounds like quite a worthwhile experience. I know it wasn't right down the street. Took a while to get over there.
A 4-hour drive. About a 4-hour drive, 2-lane highway the whole way. So it was definitely worth the drive, definitely worth your time. So if you find yourself in Sauk Center, Minnesota, stop in, say hey to Kelly, grab yourself a beer, hang out for a minute. Maybe you'll have an experience.
Absolutely. So, well, I'm glad that worked out, and it was fun and interesting, and you got to hobnob with your fellow wizards.
Yes. Yeah, we got to hobnob, and really it was a teaching lesson is what it was. A lot of new people had never been in the paranormal before were in attendance. So they were looking to learn more than anything else. Of course, I gave a really detailed speech on paranormal EVP and how EVP works and the theories behind it, because as you know, Eric, I'm a bit of an EVP guy.
So how did that go?
It went very, very well. Yeah, because generally I don't speak to brand new people. It's always kind of like, well, I don't want to give them bad information or lose them and all the technical jargon. It really went off very, very well. In fact, I had more questions. The questions took up more time than the actual presentation did. So there was a lot of questions they had about how it works, theories behind it, best ways to do it, best equipment. To use analog versus digital, because that argument's still out there, because the purists are still using the analog, to be honest with you. A lot of higher education places that might dabble in the paranormal will not accept a digital recording as evidence.
And why is that? Because
they can't scrutinize it. They can't look at it. They can't put it on a microscope. They can't see how it was manipulated to make that voice.
Mm-hmm.
Where they can't do that with a digital, because a digital is a digital is a digital, where they actually have the physical evidence in front of them.
Got it.
That is why they do not, generally speaking, accept digital. In my experience anyway, that could have changed by now. It's been a while since I submitted anything like that to any of the institutions, but maybe I will this time, because I got some very earth-shattering EVP here. I got to tell you, man. Some of it is very, very scary, to the point where I'm like, whoa. Man, I'm glad I didn't hear that firsthand.
Very interesting. So you're talking about from that weekend?
Yes, from that weekend. It happened in the basement. And so that basement, now, of course, if you did watch the Ghost Adventures episode, that was the epicenter of all the creepy stuff. Now, everything above the basement's pretty lighthearted. Like the kids or this or that. But if you go into the basement, that's where the rubber meets the road, and you run into some not so nice specters down there.
Why do you think that is?
Why
is
idea.
It the basements?
It's always the basement, right?
Just to corroborate that, for example, at the Knickerbocker Hotel in relatively nearby Linesville, Pennsylvania, just across the Pennsylvania border, about maybe an hour and a half from where I am, you walk in. And I forget if it's a 3-story plus basement basement or if it's even a 4-story plus basement, but I'm thinking it may be 3. So, but anyway, all of the above ground floors feel very cheerful, very warm, very welcoming. They may be really active, but it feels cheerful and warm. But you go in that basement, and it gets really creepy. You're walking down those stairs. They're old wooden steps. They're creaking. I mean, it's like a horror movie. By the time you're down in the bottom, not only has the temperature dropped, because, of course, you're going to the basement, but everything has changed about the environment, the way it feels, the way you move through that air. It is so weird, and it's so obvious, and it happens to everyone every time.
Well, let me tell you, you're exactly right, because it's no different at the Palmer. I mean, upstairs, it's all happy, cheerful. Whatever ghosts are there want you there, and they're very interested in what you're doing, and there's no malevolent feeling at all, you know, where you're just kind of, happy-go-lucky ghosts, if there's such thing. And you go in the basement, and you almost feel like, I tell people, it feels like you're going underwater. I mean, the pressure, it just, hits you. Yeah. As soon as you hit that bottom step, you step into the basement of the Palmer house. I'm sure it's the same with the Knickerbocker. You feel as if, your ears almost want to pop from the pressure.
Yep.
You get downstairs, and I was sitting in what they affectionately call a snowman room, which is a snowman that a ghost will move. It will move it. It'll make it dance. It'll move its head. And I witnessed this. Had I not witnessed this, I would not have believed it. But I'm sitting there all by myself, mind you, Eric, in the basement. By myself. And now everybody said, dude, whatever you do, don't go in the basement by yourself. Well, I've been in a lot of haunted locations, and everybody always said, dude, don't go in the basement by yourself. Well, I was in the basement by myself. I know. Never do that, but I was. So I'm sitting there in the snowman room. And if you go back and you watch the Ghost Adventures film, or if you watch anything Minnesota Ghost Box put out there, the snowman room is a bit of it can get scary pretty fast, because evidently that snowman is a bit of a trigger object. It likes to use it to scare people. So I'm sitting there going, I get it. You guys like to move a snowman. Big deal. All right? Big deal. All right? You're not going to scare me. I've been around the block. So soon after I say that, Eric, in my right ear, I hear just like that. Just like a dog. Right.
Wow.
Right in
snarling.
Snarling. And I kept on seeing things out of the corner of my eye. And the light, I got up. I was so freaked out by this. I got up. There's a light above me. I turned it on. All right. Okay. I'm tapping out now. All right. Point taken. But I could see shadows kind of darting in and out of the corners around me, just waiting. It was like, you know what I mean? And then thankfully someone came down there, because to be honest with you, I was getting a little freaked out at that point. I'm like, whoa.
Well, it's always different when you're alone.
Yeah, whoa, what did I do? And thankfully reinforcements came down and everything kind of lightened up. But until then, I was pucker factor 10, my friend. I was scared.
A pucker factor.
It was scary. Not every day do you have... Well, see, now there's already tales of a demon, for lack of a better word, down there.
A negative entity.
A negative entity already down there that doesn't like it when people are down there. And, of course, I rattled its cage, which I don't advise everyone to always do. But I was nice about it. I just said, hey, you know what? If you don't want to move the snowman, don't move the snowman, because, quite honestly, I've seen it done before. I've seen bigger things move. So, I mean, if you don't want to move stuff, I get it. But
gently taunting.
Just very gently, because you don't want to full-blown provoke there, because things will go sideways quick.
You were just spurring
letting them know
on to perhaps do something.
Yeah, letting them know that I don't necessarily need to have the snowman move.
Exactly. It wouldn't make your week.
No, I've already seen it. I mean, it's like I said to it, if you want to impress me, pick it up and throw it across the room. Now I'll be impressed.
That would be impressive.
That would be impressive. That did not happen. Instead, I got a growl of some type of dog or beast or what have you down there. And in this basement, just to top things off, you do see the episode of Minnesota Ghost Box or Ghost Adventures, mainly Ghost Adventures. The owners of that hotel dug what they only think are human remains out of that basement.
Oh, my goodness.
When they went to go retrieve the bones, they miraculously disappeared.
Very odd. That, Where do we think they went?
I have no idea. Neither does anyone else. Nobody knows. She was going to turn them into the forensics department, I think at the University of Minnesota or maybe the BCA, Criminal Bureau of Apprehension or somebody, to have them looked at to find out whether they're human or not. And when she went to go retrieve them to take them with her over there, the box that contained this possible human bones was gone.
Very strange.
That
do you
is
think there is
very
a
strange.
paranormal component to that?
Well, I would think so, unless there's a dog down there, maybe grabbed the box, it was gnawing on bones or something. But according to what Kelly, the owner, was telling me, that's definitely a paranormal component to it. And it definitely lived up to billing. It was scary at moments, but mostly it was friendly spirits, a couple children in there that want to make themselves known. I did watch people have balls, like ping pong balls, ripped out of their hands by these said children.
Dang.
Yeah, it was actually a lot of fun. Lots of fun.
So where would you place the Palmer House amongst the haunted locales that you have been to and investigated or investigated?
Well, I've been to like Rolling Hills. I've been to Sloss Furnace. I've been to all those places. I've even been to Bob and Mackey's. I've been to the Villisca. I would say I would put just pure activity level of the ghosts wanting to mess around, or at least being cooperative in your efforts. I would put them about a good solid 3. Number 3. I'd put them up there because it's hard to find a place where they'll actually, interact the way they were there, and that's always kind of fun.
Oh yeah. So, well, and it seems like they're even willing to kind of, go along with the program. So
I was down there though. I was down in that basement. I'm looking around. There's an area called the door room, and I found something in there that was a little bit of concern. I even told the owner about it. I said, you might not want to use that. I found what they call a psychomantium down there. Are you familiar with a psychomantium?
I remember that term, but I can't really think
Basically,
of
what you do with a psychomantium, and this is actually set up down there, and I heard another radio host from the area did this, which I do not advise anyone to do if you're not prepared, is you light a couple candles and you put them just below a mirror. Any mirror will work. And just so you can't actually see the flame in the mirror, but you're getting the flickering light effect going across the mirror. You stare into said mirror long enough, and you will see ghosts, and they will come and they will interact with you. But you don't always see good ghosts. See, now it's an open call out to whatever might be there,
right?
And it's also open call out for whatever wants to come through can come through. See,
which is always potentially dangerous.
It can always work like a door as well. They don't necessarily have to just stay in the mirror. It becomes, theorizing, of course, a portal. Right. And I kind of said, well, I and it was kind of weird. Some people said, well, a lot of weird stuff didn't start happening until that experiment started happening.
Very interesting.
And so, I would definitely say don't participate unless you want to. I'm not going to tell you what you can and cannot do as investigators or enthusiasts or researchers. I wouldn't do it. I did one time, a psychomantium, locked in a room with a candle and a mirror for an entire hour.
And?
Yeah, I saw all sorts of weird stuff, man. I saw black shadows behind me. I saw ghosts in the mirror. I saw myself as an old man.
Oh, my.
And I'm not sure if this is all play of light and my imagination going crazy. You see what I'm saying? We're going with this? I'm not sure if it's paranormal or if it's our own minds trying to, with that flickering light constantly moving, our own senses trying to make some type of sense because our mind hates chaos.
A form of pareidolia.
Yeah. So, our mind hates chaos. It really does. It'll try to put bases anywhere.
Yep, that's for sure.
Anywhere. So really, it really could be pareidolia, but then again, it could be something to it. So definitely a word of caution before you decide that maybe the psychomantium is for you. Really quick, one big headline across the paranormal, maybe shaking the paranormal even. Are you familiar with Steve Huff?
I certainly am familiar with Steve Huff, yes.
He is leaving the paranormal field.
Why, pray tell?
He released a big spread out on his Facebook page, as well as did a press release, which I have, that he is leaving because he is being assaulted by demons.
Uh-oh.
Demons have been after him for a number of years since he started dabbling with ITC, which is basically using a radio of sorts to communicate with the other side. So it's just electronical way, like the Frank's box or SB7, where you hear that. Hi. I mean, that whole thing.
Yep, I know what you mean, and that was well done, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. And he claims,
you sure that wasn't the real thing?
It might have been. Maybe I was channeling it. I was told this weekend I am psychic. Exactly.
Joel is psychic.
Exactly.
Psychic.
Yeah, exactly. But he is leaving the field mainly because Huff spoke of having demons try to possess him, and that after doing this type of research for so long, there was no way he could keep something so dark away. Steve stated that he had been hospitalized twice recently, and that since his loved ones were being targeted, he decided to draw the line and leave the research behind him.
Well, let's look at it. Think about it. Virtually all the people who we talk to, and we've talked to most of the big names in the field and medium-sized names and really veteran investigators, regardless of the names don't matter. It's the experience. And every single one of them, maybe I'm overstating it, but a very high percentage of them, if they're in the field long enough, have all encountered negative entities. It's really rare. It seems to me like the only ones I don't remember us talking to having really had problems with negative entities, or maybe some of these more powerful psychics, clairvoyants who seem to have the power within them. And they just are not disturbed by negativity. They have too much positivity or just too much power of their own. I don't know what. But any of your normal kind of everyday investigators, look at all of Ghost Adventures. Yeah. Every one of them.
Yeah, that's true.
Think of the people they've affiliated with. Oh, my God.
Well, look at Constantino's. Yeah, we were talking about that during this event.
I was going to say, it doesn't get worse than that.
I talked to the group about Cautionary Tale about the Constantinos.
That's serious business.
That is very serious, and that it's fun right now. But if you let it become who you are, and Steve, I'm not saying that's what he did, but it sure seems that way outside looking in.
Right?
Does it open you up to having these things? You become a beacon at that point.
I think people get obsessed. And they become so focused on achieving their goals, and usually it's something along the lines of, hey, I know what I believe. I want to deliver the evidence that will prove to the world that what I know to be true, what I believe to be true, is in fact true. I want to present the objective, not subjective, objective evidence that will prove this to the world. So they're out there investigating over and over and over. They're maybe not always as cautious as they should be. Most of the people we talk to, they say, not all, some say, I don't even worry about it. But a lot of people, they protect themselves every single time.
Sure.
They perform rituals going in and coming out.
Yeah, I know the group we were investigating with, Things That Go Bump Minnesota. They're big believers in smudging yourself, with herbs and things like that. I forget what they use anymore. White sage is what they use.
Sure. Yes.
Things like that. They're firm believers in. If you provoke, things are more apt to happen to you. If you're more of a passive observer, maybe. Things not so much, but it should be, like they said, it should be fun, should not be scary. But it can get scary very, very quickly. I have been in situations where I have faced down evil, and I have faced down situations I knew I was above my head, and I passed them off to the people that could deal with them. And that's where in my opinion, a lot of investigators run into that problem is they don't know their own limitations.
They think they can handle anything.
Yep.
They think it's all okay. Because it's always been okay before, it's going to be okay every time.
Yeah, and so like when that
and
snarling...
that isn't logical.
No, exactly. When that snarling thing happened in my ear, I was kind of done. I'm like, okay, I've heard that before. Let's not provoke. Let's not poke the bear anymore.
Yeah, I think we really should emphasize, especially to younger people and or people kind of new to the field, that there really is potential danger.
Well, sure,
and even if it really ultimately is only psychological,
sure,
that doesn't mean it isn't real.
It's still impactful because remember, perception is reality.
Exactly.
So you know, we've talked about thought forms on the show. Even at the outside chance that's what you're creating, it's still harmful.
Oh, potentially very harmful.
I mean, so, you know, is it real? Is it not real? But either way, you know, our mind's pretty damn powerful. And if we allow ourselves to have that perception become a reality, that's where the problem really begins. Is letting
Absolutely.
it in.
And you never know what you have unleashed,
no.
You know, until it's done, until it's happening. And you can't always control the situation. So you need to protect yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You need to be cautious. You need to have some humility. And you need to remember that if you are dealing with a quote-unquote what we would call a ghost, that's a former person. Mm-hmm. And you should treat them with the respect that you would afford a human being.
Exactly.
If it's not a former person, well, that's much worse.
Yeah, well, I think the best advice, or the story I heard from the diocese, in fact, directly, I was talking to a real exorcist, off air and everything. I was talking with him, and he said, here's the deal about the demons, and he used that word. And he's a Catholic bishop, and and that's what he does. He teaches a lot of exorcisms, and he does exorcisms. He said, here's the problem when people go into getting locked into battle with the demonic, is you might have said, you don't scare me, do your worst. And then 30 years later, it waits. It waits. It remembers. It waits. Because it has no concept of time. 30 years means nothing to them.
That. That's pretty scary.
And they wait.
Hey, isn't it break time?
It is, but they wait for that second when you're down and you're almost out, and that's when they strike. Okay, that being said, we got to run a break. It's time for America's Most Haunted Headlines, brought to you by America's Most Haunted. Don't go anywhere. Be right back right after this. After Hours AM will be right back after these messages.
America's Most Haunted, The Secrets of Famous Paranormal Places is now an epic book from Berkeley Penguin. History, legends, investigations, interviews, and profiles of America's 10 most haunted hotspots by Eric Olsen and haunted housewife Teresa Argy. Be sure to join us on Twitter and Facebook at AM Haunted, Pinterest at America's Most Haunted, and our website, americas-most-haunted.com. And here every week on America's Most Haunted Radio with all the top names in the paranormal field.
This is Jen McGowan, founder of Wayward Souls Promotions, a company dedicated to helping individuals, teams, radio shows, and others that are seeking exposure for their individual events, conventions, and shows. We offer a wide variety of advertising, such as web-based article, social media posts, podcast advertisement, and so on. Contact us at paranormalpromotion@gmail.com, visit us on Facebook at Wayward Souls Promotions, and visit our website at www.waywardsoulspromotions.com.
Welcome back to After Hours AM. And welcome back to After Hours AM, everybody. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis, right along with me,
Eric Olsen.
Hey, Eric, man, it is time for America's Most Haunted Headlines. We didn't do it last week, mainly because we had the big remote going on.
Oh, that's right.
And so, so we are definitely going to get right back to this, and it's a lot of stuff to talk about. I'm looking at the feed right now, and if you've never been here, or if you would like to follow us, go over to twitter.com, search out AM Haunted, and follow along. Definitely follow us. If you're not already following us, if you're not one of the, 458,000 people following us, you should become one of them because you're special.
You really should. And if you are interested in the paranormal, we are covering paranormal news, and that would apply to goings-on in the real world, various events and activities. That includes anything to do with Halloween, includes the media, anything remotely paranormal. We are covering it, and you should check it out and follow along. All things paranormal, spooky, and amaze-mo. All right, you know what time of year it is.
Yeah, it's almost Halloween time.
Well, before that, it's the stinkiest time of the year.
Oh, it is. That's right. I forgot.
The corpse flowers are about to bloom.
That's right. I forgot. We covered that last year, too, and they are stinky. They smell like rotting flesh. Who wants that?
They're massive. Look at the size of that thing. It's like the size of a human being.
It is huge. Maybe that's where they're putting the dead people inside that.
It just reeks to the highest heavens when it opens up. It's appalling. It really does smell like rotting flesh. And that's what it's supposed to smell like because it's trying to draw the insects that feed upon the dead.
Oh, gotcha. So they want the maggots and all the flies and all the
that
goodness.
icky stuff. And what's super cool is the U.S. Botanic Garden, where they have 3 of these things. They're just about to bloom, and apparently at the same time. They have a live stream going on, a cam going on at all times, so you can just watch it. You don't have to smell it.
Watch a disgusting flower sit there and smell anyone out.
It's so cool looking, but it's so
it
stinky.
is cool
So I would
looking.
think the live cam is definitely the way to go.
That would be the way until they develop smell-o-vision. Then we're all screwed.
Oh, God, yeah. But, apparently I have not smelled one up close. But I've had it described in great detail, and it's like rotting meat, really bad.
Oh, no thanks.
So go check that out. You don't have to smell it up.
Go check it out. Give it a good whiff.
All right, we are not far away. We are less than a month away from the beginning of the haunted attraction season. Seems to get a little bit earlier every year.
It does.
This year, the Universal Studios in Hollywood, Universal Orlando, are opening September 15th. Now we're into mid-September that it opens. I remember when it was crossing the line when they opened the last weekend of September. Now it's mid-September, and they've announced yet 2 more mazes. These are based upon The Purge and the Trick or Treat films. So that's interesting. I think that's what our image is based on the Trick or Treat film. Remember that? The front of the house with all the decorations. And what's the kid? What's the little freaky kid? Oh,
God, you're going to ask me?
You know who I mean.
Yeah, kid
the weird
from
little
Trick
character.
Let me Google that. I should be a better horror fan than that.
Well, I should know it too.
I know he's got a real weird name.
Yeah, it's just was
it Knock Knock? Was his name Knock Knock?
No, it's like a regular name. It's
okay.
I'm sure our listeners are beating themselves in the head going, these people are idiots. How can they not frickin' know? Let's see. No.
Sam. His name is Sam.
That's who it is.
Sam is his name. He is that little guy that runs around, and he's got a razor blade type half-eaten, looks like sucker, that he sometimes uses to disembowel folks.
Which is not nice.
That's not very all that nice, is it?
No, I vote no.
No, I wouldn't want that to happen to me. But you can send them to some people, but not me, though.
I agree entirely. All right, so anyway, there will be a maze at This announcement came from Universal Orlando. I'm not sure if this will be at Universal Studios as well, but they got all kinds of cool stuff. They're always doing new things, or they're reviving things. There's going to be something everywhere you turn. Mazes, scare zones, haunted houses, live shows. It's going to be amazing. One of these years, I'm going to make it back. I haven't been in a long time.
Yeah, I haven't
Halloween
been.
Horror Nights.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever been there. No, I'd remember if I did. I mean, there was that college time, but
It's something. All right, moving along. I'm still not sure exactly how I feel about Backpacker Verse. They seem to be a little bit slack with their documentation of their tales, but they tell good spooky tales.
They do, but when did they stop becoming about backpacking, and when did they become about paranormal? Shouldn't it be
within the last year?
Paranormal backpackers? I mean, shouldn't they at least have that?
You're out wandering around with your backpack. I think the way they started was they were talking about. I think they got into it like with haunted trails.
Sure.
So it applied to backpacking or haunted hikes, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then they just said screw it and started covering everything ghostly.
Well, you may as well. Just, they're done. Give the people what they want.
There's an interesting tale about a ghost girl with black eyes who was reputed to have been killed by a drunk driver who appears quite regularly on the same stretch of road outside Bernie, California. So you can click through. It's a cool picture, if nothing else.
Well, it is. I like the buttons for eyes. That's definitely a good effect right there.
That's spooky.
Yeah.
Right.
What do you think about black-eyed kids really quick, Eric? Yay, nay, or it's a bunch of bull?
That's a good question. My underlying sense is there does have to be something to it.
Yeah.
Because, for example, I interviewed at length and in great detail kind of the originator, the guy, Brian Bethel, who's down in Texas, and he's a journalist, he's a newsman. He is not, as far as I can tell, absolutely not prone to flights of fancy or exaggeration. And his story was so specific and so detailed. And even years later, because this happened back in the 90s, his experience was back in the 90s. Mm-hmm. And even all these years later, I probably interviewed him maybe 3-4 years ago. He was obviously still stricken by this. So, I mean, something happened. So what is it? That I don't know. But there's something going on that people, equate with what we call black-eyed kids. They appear to be more or less human children. They're old beyond their years, and they have black eyes, and they want to come in. They want to be invited. You guys know the tale. So if they come near you, I certainly would advise to not invite them in.
I would run. In this day and age though of cell phone, that was actually a lot of the people attending this last the event I was at. We kind of talked about just stuff that we've covered on the show, and three things I really want to talk about. Number one was, the show, of course. But number two was, of course, the ghost stories on the show. But number three was, why the hell does nobody ever take a picture of these black-eyed kids? They got cell phones everywhere with cameras.
Exactly. And that applies to anything. That applies to Bigfoot. Everything. That applies to UFOs. It applies to aliens. It applies to all of it.
I just said, good question. Where's your picture of ghosts, if you've seen them? Well, it happens so fast. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. So I really couldn't answer. I said I can't answer. I don't know why that's going on, or no one's got any pictures, if it's indeed going on, but it sure does make for a nice story, doesn't it?
It does.
So they got that going for us, at least the story.
Exactly. All right, well, moving along. Do you read any manga? Are you
That's an anime thing, kind of
Japanese comic books?
Yeah, that's Death Note. I think is the most notable one from that I know of. Right? Am I right?
Very well known. Yeah.
Okay.
A huge seller, very popular.
Not a whole lot other than Death Note. No.
I don't know. I don't know anything about it either. So, I mean, now I do, because it's going to be a movie on Netflix, and it will be premiering on August 25th.
Oh, my birthday. Yep.
Is that your birthday?
That is my birthday. That is my birthday, my friend, and it'll be a Friday, August 25th, so I might have to stop and might have to watch Death Note on my birthday, while I cry about being yet another year older.
I know. They seem to come faster and faster.
They do.
So anyway, it's somewhat controversial because once again, in the manner of Ghost in the Shell, I guess is what it was.
Yeah.
There's cries of whitewashing because they are using American Caucasian actors.
Oh my Lord.
I know. Anyway, so that's what's going on with with Death Note, and it is coming, as I said, on the 25th. You can click through.
On a related note, on that subject about whitewashing, with Death Note in particular, the best answer I got was not a racist answer. It was white money paid for it, though, with white actors, because we're not going to, for a Western audience. Yeah, I mean, so, I mean, the best answer is it's made for a Western audience. And
yeah,
so,
it doesn't make any sense to me. I am empathetic. I understand identity politics. I understand the concerns of cultural appropriation.
I get it. I totally get it.
But it can go in any direction.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Me neither.
If Japan or China or Germany or Antarctica takes an American novel or an American film and does it with their own people.
And they do it quite often.
Their own audience,
and they
like
do,
you said.
Yep. They do it quite often. So
I just don't get it. Doesn't make any sense.
I mean, neither.
I guess who they're standing up for, apparently, would be Asian American actors. That's I guess who they're concerned.
And I brought that up.
His role should be going to Asian American actors.
I was actually talking with a filmmaker, a friend of mine, and we're going to have him on the show later on. But I asked him, he's a fairly well-known filmmaker, and I asked him that exact question. But he says, "Do you understand the minority that they represent in Hollywood?"
Probably similar to the minority they represent in the country.
Yeah, exactly. So he says, to get that kind of thing, because he was actually involved in this movie, and he was kind of irritated with that. And I kind of reached out to him and said, "Hey, what do you think about all that?" And he says, "Man, if we were I'm going to quote him, if we were remaking Roots, I'd totally get that about whitewashing. If we put all white actors in, I'd get that. I really would. But we're making something that's fiction. And we're trying to make something that's palatable to the Western audience by and large. Now, we have a whole host of different actors and actresses in this from different backgrounds." And that's where he left it. He says, we have a whole lot of people from different countries that act in this film. Why is it so bad that we Westernize this film? Because Netflix ordered this film made for their Western audience. So,
there you go. And I looked it up. Asian Americans are 5.6% of the total population. So, I mean, that's a sizable minority. They certainly should be recognized, and they're important and do lots of wonderful things.
They absolutely are.
They're Americans.
Yep.
So if you were doing, here's my answer. That's a good point about Roots. Obviously, you got to be appropriate to the material. Mm-hmm. And if you were doing a story about Asian Americans, obviously you would have to have Asian Americans playing those roles. There's no question about that. But when you're taking a film or a story or a book or manga or whatever the case may be that happens to have originated in one country and in one language, and you're completely transforming it for the American or whatever, it doesn't matter where, then I don't get it. I just don't get the problem. All right. Anyway, moving along. Boy, my brother obviously does not remember that I have this show because he has now called 5 times in the last 5 minutes.
What's your brother's name?
Kirk.
Hey, Kirk, cut it out, man. We're trying to do a show. Go yell at him, Eric. Give him the what for.
Unfair that my radio show with 1.5 million listeners is on right now that you have called 5 times in a row. So I guess I'll get back to the show. Talk to you later.
that problem's taken care of.
Yeah, you probably won't hear back from him for a while.
Not until Christmas. Wow, this is live radio, folks. You gotta love it. Put him on the air with us.
What is going on? It's right now. You are on the air.
Hey, Kirk.
Okay. Well, I gotta go because really, I'm on the air. Wednesday and Thursday night, 9 to 11 Eastern.
Yes,
okay.
Tune in.
This is not an emergency.
Well, there you go, folks. Live radio at its greatest and finest right there. We are listening to Eric talk with his brother.
Right.
So,
It was not to be denied.
Oh,
I guess.
he was not. He was tenacious.
Yeah. Wow.
Tenacious
All right,
guy.
moving along. All right, let's get back to the Twitter. So, as we've mentioned, you guys, this is the place to be. Go to twitter.com/AM-haunted
That's
for the
right.
America's Most Haunted Twitter feed. All things paranormal. All right, this is kind of cool. I like this a lot. As they went on, they became less interesting, which is not unusual. But certainly the original Halloween Town shows, movies on the Disney Channel are very likable and hold up pretty well.
Sure,
right?
they do. Latin Hocus Pocus is my two favorite of the children's type.
Love those. Love them.
Programming.
So, with Debbie Reynolds as the grandmother witch, of course. So what they're doing, what they have been doing for some time now, the town, there's a real town where those shows, where those movies were filmed. It's up in Oregon. And every year now, around Halloween, they have a Spirit of Halloween Town weekend. And this year, it's going to be a reunion of most of the cast, kind of the whole family, all those kids and the mother, in honor of Debbie Reynolds. And there's lots of festivities. It's the weekend of October 14th and 15th. Let me tell you, the town, I think it's Mount St. Helens.
That's what I thought.
That's kind of a scary name.
That is.
I don't want it to blow up.
Could you imagine that?
Is it near the real Mount St. Helens?
I don't know. I think you're right.
No, it's just St. Helens, thank goodness.
Okay.
Not Mount St. Helens, it's just St. Helens. So, St. Helens, Oregon, every year they have this Halloween Town Festival. And again, there will be a reunion with Kimberly J. Brown, the original Marnie, Judith Hoag, the mother, J. Paul Zimmerman, who was the brother Dylan.
Sure.
And they're all going to be there. The younger sister, who was Sophie, is trying to attend. She's iffy. And we imagine that Debbie Reynolds will be there in spirit.
Yep. Now, if we had a SB7 there, she may come over in spirit. Who knows? Who knows?
So that'll be really fun. If you're a fan of those movies, if you're a fan of Debbie Reynolds, if you're a fan of Halloween, that really should be a ton of fun. So consider that for your Halloween travel plans. All right, moving along. Our buds, Amy Bruni, Adam Barry, returning with season 2 of Kindred Spirits on TLC, and that's coming up September 15th. There's hope for the haunted.
That is really, really cool. I do believe they're going to be at one of the Paracons, either Michigan or Minnesota. I can't remember. You can actually go meet them. I do know the Minnesota one that we will be at, Monoman, Minnesota, will have Zach Baggins and Jason Hawes there. And, of course, coming back, just really announces Josh Gates will be there as well. So, cool.
That's a big one. Those are some big
that
names.
Is some big names.
It's about the biggest collection I've ever heard in one place.
Yeah. So I will be there, and of course Greg will be there, and God willing, Mr. Eric Olsen will be there.
It would be wondrous. We'll have to see. When I did not realize till we sat there and figured it out. It's as far from me as Florida. It's 1,000 miles.
It's 1,000 miles, my friend. 1,000 miles of goodness.
Am I going to Florida or am I going to Minnesota?
Let's pick. I don't know. Well, I'd definitely go to Minnesota during the Paracon. Now, that's the place to be.
I know. All right, so coming to TLC, Kindred Spirits, And season 2 will be premiering September 15th, and I imagine we will have Amy and Adam on the program. I'm guessing.
I would imagine we will.
Just got that notice today. Sent it right back. Yes, we want to have them on.
Yes, absolutely. Let's talk to them again. They're
all right.
Really
now
cool.
You have noticed, because you have mentioned it more than once now. Boy, are they promoting the hell out of this It movie, right?
Oh, and I hate clowns.
They are beating this thing to death, but
It's
they must be doing an excellent job because, get this, in all their preliminary tracking, which I guess they're pretty accurate with, as far as attendance at openings especially, they are projecting that the It movie could be the biggest September opening in the U.S. ever.
Ever? Like ever? Like as long as the record's been kept? Ever?
In the history of the world.
Wow.
Now, September is not a big opening month, so that's part of it. But they are projecting about a $60 million weekend.
They're hoping for a $60 million weekend.
They're hoping, but they're pretty confident.
Well, I did go see the newest one, The Dark Tower, by Stephen King, that's out, with Matthew McConaughey and a few others. It was actually a really good movie. It was very, very well done. I liked it a lot. My wife was bored off her butt, but I read all the novels, so I'm like, yeah.
So you know.
Yeah, I knew the universe going into it and what it's all about. So that's another good one. But I'll have to go see it. I really do not like clowns, and that is no joke. And so It was the movie that made me fear clowns.
Well, maybe holistically you will come full circle.
Good therapy to go see it.
It looks like it's going to be well done. Looks like it's scary. I find this new Pennywise horrifying, and I think it's going to be something.
I think it will be.
They are saying it will be scarier than the miniseries that ran.
Really? Well, the guy with the zit or whatever it was on the side of his face is the scariest part of that miniseries. That's the only thing outside the clown. And Tim Curry playing the hell out of Pennywise.
Oh, yeah,
outside that's the only thing I really remember is the guy with the giant mole. I'd have to go back and watch it again.
It's time to revisit the tale. Yeah. All right, we're really only a few days away, less than a week from the total solar eclipse. It's coming up on the 31st. There's all kinds of information out there about it. We got a link to a very cool, very simple, anyone can do it, tips from NASA on getting the best possible photographs of the total solar eclipse.
During the total solar eclipse, I'm going to play Bonnie Tyler's song, Total Eclipse of the Heart.
She's going to be performing while that goes on.
Why does that not surprise me?
It doesn't surprise me.
It doesn't surprise me.
Bonnie Tyler, the return of Bonnie Tyler.
Yeah.
The one brief moment.
The one song that she had that anyone cared about.
Total solar eclipse. So I didn't see where she's going to be performing it, but she will.
Oh God, you're probably
in the dark. In the dark.
Turn around. Every now and then I get a little bit lonely. And
that was not always my favorite song.
No, I never pegged you though as a Bonnie Tyler fan.
I'm not a big fan of that song.
It's
just a little too. It's a little too much.
It goes right up there with Bohemian Rhapsody with Queen. I mean,
it's a little too operatic.
It's a good song. Don't get me wrong for what it is, but then there's a point where you're like, oh, I've heard this enough. Okay, I get it. I get it.
Well, for me, that's very interesting that you would pick Bohemian Rhapsody because usually I'm in the very small minority who doesn't really like the song. In fact, I probably like it better now than I did at the time because I was actually a huge Queen fan, but I did not like the direction that they were going by the time of that album. I thought they were becoming almost a self-parody, where it's so arch and it's so contrived sounding. It's not a rock song anymore.
No, you're right. It got to that point.
I love early Queen. I love early Queen. That first Queen album, that is one of my favorite albums from the 70s, the very first Queen album. But by the time you got to Bohemian Rhapsody. It just kind of seemed like a joke. It was just a little too over the top for me. But I understand
I'm right
why
there with
people love it because it is extraordinarily well done. But it's just too jokey,
Yeah, you're right. You know what? No joke there. You're absolutely correct. It's a little bit of a caricature of their former self, that song. We got to go to break. We come back. Patrick Hemstreet, sorry about that, will be joining us. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back right after this. After Hours AM will be right back after these messages.
Ranger Station, Ranger speaking.
Yeah, hi. I'd like to report a bear sighting.
Location.
My backyard.
Oh, your backyard. Try telling a bear that.
I did, and this bear talked back.
Talking bear, that's rich.
No, wait, it was Smokey Bear.
Smokey? Why didn't you say so?
I did say so.
Continue.
I was burning yard waste.
No, boy.
He told me to burn legally and responsibly, and to remember that if it's too hot to touch, it's too hot to leave.
And as always, he's right. 9 out of 10 wildfires are caused by humans. That means 9 out of 10 wildfires can be prevented.
Yeah, I know that now.
Thanks to me.
Actually, thanks to Smokey.
As usual, the talking bear gets all the credit. Get your Smokey on. Always burn responsibly and contact your local fire department for open burning regulations. Because 9 out of 10 wildfires can be prevented. Brought to you by Smokey Bear, the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council. Learn more at smokeybear.com. Only you can prevent wildfires.
This is Jen McGowan, founder of Wayward Souls Promotions, a company dedicated to helping individuals, teams, radio shows, and others that are seeking exposure for their individual events, conventions, and shows. We offer a wide variety of advertising, such as web-based article, social media posts, podcast advertisement, and so on. Contact us at paranormalpromotion@gmail.com, visit us on Facebook at Wayward Souls Promotions, and visit our website at www.waywardsoulspromotions.com.
Welcome back to After Hours AM. And welcome back to After Hours AM, everybody. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis, right along with me,
Eric Olsen.
And it's Halloween time, Eric, when I start unveiling new Midnight Syndicate as our bumpers, by the way. So that's a new stuff, but we
love them. They're my neighbors.
They are your neighbors, and we got a great guest on tap, Eric. I'm really excited to talk with him. So who are we talking to? Let's tell the audience.
He just started unleashing a torrent of fascinating words during the break. We said, no, stop, shut up, back it up. All right, Patrick Hemstreet's electrifying speculative techno-science trilogy began with the God Wave and continues in the explosive sequel, The God Peak, which comes out on Harper Voyager August 22nd, in which a team of neuroscientists must face the consequences of playing God when the superhumans they've created threaten to annihilate humanity. When will they ever learn, my friends? In the God Wave, Chuck Brenton had a simple idea. If brainwaves make the needles on an EEG machine move, why can't people be trained to use brainwaves to move other things as well? Well, my goodness, they did. All hell broke loose, superhumans running amok. In Book 2, The God Peak, 3 of Chuck's students, the Alphas, have taken the world hostage with their seemingly superhuman powers. And while their goal is world peace, they seem willing to sacrifice countless innocent lives to achieve their new world order. Horrified, Chuck is determined to stop the monsters he's created no matter what. Frankenstein. Chuck and his team will have to come out of hiding and wield their own burgeoning abilities in an attempt to stop these increasingly unstable terrorists. And it is quite a ride, my friends, I assure you. Author Patrick Hemstreet is a novelist, neuroengineer, entrepreneur, patent-pending inventor, special warfare-trained Navy medic, good God, man, stand-up comic, and actor. And he used to be a woman. He lives in Houston, Texas with his wife and sons. Welcome to the program, Patrick.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. That was quite an intro. I could not have done that better. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Patrick. Wow.
You are welcome.
Yeah, what got me
well lived.
Exactly. What got me
life well lived.
What got me the most is the stand-up comedian part. Well, aside from the woman part that you added, which is obviously not true. But no, but the stand-up comedian. Now, you wore a lot of hats in life, and definitely lived a lot. Tell us a little bit more about brought you to become a novelist after all these accomplishments and experience so much in life. What brought you to write books like The God Wave and The God Peak?
And these
I just had a lot of, it's just as simple as having a lot of ideas to share. You know, if you walk in a lot of circles and do a lot of different things, you know, I had kind of this kind of bifurcated existence. I had my neuroscience during my professional hours during the day, and at night I was on stage and being silly. And so I had this artist and neuroscientist, you know, duality going on. Mm-hmm. And I found that moving in those circles, I accumulated a great deal of experience. And when you do that, when you accumulate all this life experience, you've got to tell someone about it.
Sure.
You can't just sit on it. And it's that need to get that out and that need to communicate it to other people. And, you know, I've always been a bit of a storyteller. Coming up with ideas, you know, I was the kid that would watch the cartoons and come up with, you know, the adjunctive story that would, you know, what if this happened in Speed Racer? You know, that was kind of the questions I would ask. And it just, into my adult years, I said, you know what, these are ideas that I want to get out there, and I have a longing to do it, and, you know, I'm going to write them down. And it took me about 2.5 to 3 years to complete the God Wave. And once it was written down, I said, well, now let me see if I can get it into someone's hands who wants to actually attempt to sell it for me. And here we are.
Yeah. Well, you know, I guess the audience right now is going, well, what's neuroscience? You know, and that's a very valid question because it means a lot of things, evidently, because I looked on the internet and wow, is there different facets of neuroscience? So if you could add, I know it's really a tall order, but if you can kind of put it in that nutshell for them.
Sure. So what I do is specifically neurodiagnostics. And so I use machines to measure the activity of the brain and the velocity at which nerves and the spinal cord conduct electricity. Mm-hmm. And so using that information, you can determine if there's any diseases of the nerves or of the brain. And in a surgical setting, you can determine if there's any damage done to nerve structures, of course, unintentionally. And you can see it on your monitor using electric currents and plotting how fast and how powerfully they travel. And so I've done that for, almost 2 decades. And so to me, my neuroscience, my branch or my area of neuroscience is an applied neuroscience of actually gathering and acquiring data directly from the nervous system. So there are other people who study the theoretical aspects and who make devices like Chuck that make devices where people can fly drones with their brain, and people who study, you know, the various, but, you know, attach people to a quantitative EEG and have them eat a chocolate cake and say, that's the part of the brain that likes chocolate cake. We got it, Bob. You know, it's the red part. Yeah. And so I simply sit and send electric currents to and fro and make sure that they travel at the same speed or the speed that a healthy nerve conducts electricity.
So you were talking during the break, and you were explaining that you spend a lot of time doing what you just said, and you're observing these brain waves on these machines. And then some of these other ideas started sort of manifesting themselves in your mind and seemed to come together, right?
Yeah, so I've been a student of, I guess, what you could term mysticism, or, I mean, if you wanted to use a darker word, occult mysticism, philosophy, those types of things, my entire adult life.
Mm-hmm.
And, I've always, when I was in the Navy and I was in a special warfare medic training, there were a lot of times when I had to overcome a lot of physical limitations and pain and fear. And what I discovered in that was that the mind has a fair amount, if not complete. I won't go as far as to say it's complete, but it's a very high percentage of dominion over the body and the physical stature of your existence.
Sure.
And that willpower, to me, is kind of what the mystic studies to understand. We read how the mind can transcend this, this reality or transcend this level of consciousness. So having those ideas running around in my head while I'm watching an EEG and watching these brain waves,
mm-hmm.
It occurred to me one day, I said, well, what if there was this wonderful breakthrough, transcendental, highly spiritual, mystic moment? I wonder what it would look like when it
and I'm getting bombarded with questions already. I'm going to let you finish that thought, but it's kind of on that path, what you're talking about. And, man, I have just got flooded with these same questions. So go ahead, sir.
Oh, yeah, and I mean, that was really it, and the thing is if when you, well, the funny thing about brainwaves is that the further you pull yourself out of this reality or pull your perspective out of this reality, the slower your brain gets. So even if you close your eyes, your brain slows down a little bit. It goes from beta to alpha. Mm-hmm. And when you sleep, the further in the sleep you get, the slower your brain gets, or the slower the waveforms get. I thought about it in the opposite direction. If you were to engage into this reality in an accelerated state or gain a mastery over physical reality and not go, towards a dream state, would that mean a highly powerful and faster EEG, like is exhibited in the book? If you were
like a supercharger,
telekinetic,
exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, the question I got hit with by 50 people, no kidding, right away was, what do you believe then when for life after death? Do you believe it exists as a scientist? Is there anything that you've seen to lend itself to maybe there is there's some transmission from the brain electrically that would lend itself to life after death?
Oh, I believe there's life after death. I'm not. I'm the farthest thing from an atheist. I am not I'm not a fundamentalist by any means, but I do believe in an intelligent design, and I do believe that consciousness is something that can't be defined or encapsulated into just the brain. There's the question: is the brain a transmitter or a receiver? Is the brain what allows us to tune into a stream of collective unconsciousness and what allows us to filter our perspective into our identity? And that's the question. We don't really understand consciousness and how it arises. So it makes sense to me that it would persist after death.
Yeah, we're a paranormal show, of course. Primarily, our Thursday nights are a big paranormal night, and of course, that made the radar of everybody that loves the show go off at once. Well, what is this man of science? But of course, outside looking in, this guy that's dealt with brains for 20 years, watching how they work, how neurotransmitters work. What was your feeling on? We get reports. I got to tell you, Patrick, we get reports on ghosts on this show all the time. Like I saw Grandma standing in my living room. Stuff like that. Now, neuroscience, thinking of how our brains actually work and how we perceive things in the outside world. Do you believe in ghosts? Do you think that is something like that in the atmosphere, or do you think it's our own mind maybe playing a trick on us?
I think that I believe that there is I believe in the possibility of residual energy existing based on a strong emotional event or a strong thought, because I think that there is I lean more towards kind of a Hebraic, Kabbalistic, or Jewish mindset when it comes to my studies. And in what I've read, there are different stages of the soul, or different aspects of the soul or of existence. It's kind of almost like we kind of cascade into this physical realm, and there's different pieces of it. and some of those aspects are considered to remain in a certain, I guess maybe a perpetual or locked static state if there is a strong emotional or catastrophic, they say a murder, something that's very, very emotional and frightening can cause that aspect of the soul to remain in a static placement. That's kind of the mystical explanation. Scientifically, we're all just predisposed to say, oh, well, it's just a hallucination.
Yeah.
You want to see you want to see your grandmother so bad that you saw her.
Yeah.
Or that it's something manifesting. I don't know that I really buy that, because there are people who see strangers. I've never seen this before. I've never seen this person before, and he was walking down my hall. Now, there's a lot to be said for mental illness. I'm not going to say that some people who maybe have a mental illness may be seeing things, or there may be depression involved. But I do think that there is a phenomenon of thought that we don't understand, an external manipulator that maybe leaves a signature and maybe leaves a residue, for lack of a better word.
It's funny you bring that up, because I was recently, just back last weekend, in the most haunted hotel in America, the Palmer House. And we had an event happen at this hotel of a lady screaming, right? And I heard it. Everybody in the hotel heard this, and there's just no way that could have been a mass hallucination, because, my Lord, we're even near each other. And so no one knew what we were all thinking. And so that's what really made me think, wow, how are we really, like what you just mentioned, locked in the static state? Or does consciousness truly transcend where we are today? I've seen evidence for both. I've talked with people, clergy people, lay people, law enforcement, that have all had these grand tales of our essence transcending this life and still having thought and being very, very intelligent. And also heard tales of Grandpa Bill gets up at 3 a.m. every night, and he does the same thing, the ghost, all the time, which would speak to being static and stuck. Where we've had other things where they want to talk, they're telling you the year, they're telling you who the president is, they're really thinking. So I'm really refreshed to hear that from you, because Eric and I, we've had a lot of doctors on the show, and some have said, that's ridiculous. There's no such thing as life after death. And they almost giggle. But, I'm very pleased that,
I don't, well...
Oh, go ahead, sir.
I agree with you, because I think I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I think that it's more difficult to defend materialism than it is to defend the idea that consciousness exists outside of a physical confines.
Sure.
To me, defending materialism as a sole state of existence is extremely difficult. You have to do it even from a scientific perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've recently discovered gravity waves and dark matter. I mean, what else is out there? To simply say that everything is the arrangement of atoms that I see before me and nothing else, nothing more and nothing else, it's a very, very tenuous position to defend. I just don't believe I don't think it's defensible.
I agree with you.
That's fascinating. And it also brings up another point, something that we were talking about in the first hour, also in relationship to Joel's visit to the Palmer House, and that was, we were talking about thought forms. Now, do you have? It's very interesting. You mentioned the Jewish tradition, because of course you have the golem. Golem, is of that tradition, and that's kind of your classic thought form. What are your thoughts on that, or of the reality? It's literally it's thought made real.
Well, I don't believe a golem was intended to be a thought form. If you read the lore, there's actually a procedure written in Kabbalistic text for creating a golem, a physical copy of a human being, using Kabbalistic techniques. It's not merely a thought form. It is a there's a certain mountain you go to, and you use certain mud, and you consecrate it in a certain way. I mean, I've never tried it, but that's what the text says. And it arises, the Golem of Prague. It arises, and it's this big dummy that can pour you tea, that obeys your commands. And but I do think, in terms of what I've read in alternative literature about, you're talking about, is what's referred to in some, ceremonial magic circles as a servitor, where A magician or a sorcerer will forcefully create an entity using the power of his thought, and that entity will do his bidding and remain, I guess, a once removed from physical reality and kind of a thought, with, I guess, if you wanted to, one step above consciousness, it will exist but not be physically visible. That's what I've read in certain other texts that would be referred to as a servitor. And I don't know that I do believe that there is an effect that thought plays on reality, that we can influence reality with our thoughts. I do believe that. And I don't want to pull out something as cliche or try it as a double slit experiment, but it's quantum theory at its basis kind of supports the fact that we form reality through observation. And if you're able to focus your thought in a certain way, I believe that it does have an effect on intention, and directed thought has an effect on reality. So why couldn't you concentrate that thought and form something and have it be, I guess, something at least that, hovering in the superposition, and maybe bring it forth with the power of your intention. I don't have any way to test that empirically or give you data on it, but it sure is one heck of a theory that I think is not as outlandish as it may seem off the cuff.
Yeah.
Well, it goes back thousands of years. Think about it. What is witchcraft? But it's intention, and it's focus, and it's intention. It's exactly what you just said.
Well, look at the Philip experiment, Eric, of the 1970s.
That was literally summoning. Well, was it summoning or was it creating?
It was creating.
Literally
Okay,
creating
Patrick,
an entity.
have you ever heard of the Philip experiment?
Which one is it? I'm sorry, you cut off for a second.
The
What was the experiment?
The Philip experiment. Have you ever heard of that experiment?
No, tell me about it.
Well, in the 70s, and they even made a movie called The Quiet Ones based on this experiment. There was a group of scientists that got together. I want to say it was in Canada, if I'm not mistaken, got together. And they pulled a bunch of so-called mysticists, people, psychics, what have you, together around a round table. And they set the parameters to create a human being. They said Philip needs to have a backstory. Philip needs to have a history. Philip needs to have loved ones. Philip needs to have his own personality. After they concentrated on Philip and talking about Philip as if he's in the room, as if he is a real person, talking about his history, what he's done and who he's loved, and basically a life they've created, basically a fictional life. Next thing you know, they're capturing in science, these scientists are capturing instrumentation, measuring electrical charge in the chair he was supposed to be sitting in. They experienced what they call electronic voice phenomena happening, where Philip started to talk about his experiences and who he is. They created a person out of nothing.
I mean, that to me sounds, particularly if it's a group of people directed, it's maybe almost a group decision to form an entity out of a conscious entity, which I think is very fascinating. I'm going to have to read up on that.
Yeah.
How do you spell it?
It's the Philip.
Just fill up the name Philip.
Yep. Experiment. Yep. And
Philip. Okay.
Yep. And they also made a feature film a few years ago called The Quiet Ones, chronicling pretty accurately, according to the people that were involved in the experiment, pretty accurately how it went down and how they felt. Yeah, it was quite great. I know.
You got to work that into that third book in the trilogy. So that brings us back to it. So what is the mechanism then? Let's tell the readers and let's remind them that this book, the second in the trilogy, The God Peak, it's coming out next week. So people they can get on Amazon and order it up now. So what is the mechanism in your book whereby your alphas, your trainees, people who are learning to do this, how does that work, and what are the consequences? Of course, you don't want to give too much away, but very interested in the mechanism, of how you pull that off and how do they gain that power?
Well, so I've read a lot of psychocybernetics, and I've also looked into different experiments where the suggestion is that the human mind doesn't understand, the subconscious mind doesn't understand the difference, or doesn't have a full understanding of the difference between reality and fantasy, and particularly in VR, or if you imagine, if you were to imagine yourself experiencing something horrible, you could feel it. You could feel the emotions. You could feel uneasy. You could, that's when we think distressing thoughts or pleasing thoughts, we have a visceral response to it, and the subconscious mind doesn't really understand the difference between reality and imagined fantasy. So imagine if you are training your brain every day in a virtual reality environment or with a computer simulation, and you're forming things out of nothing and you're levitating things with your mind in the simulation. You do that long enough, and the mind loses the ability to understand that it's no longer a computer simulation, or it never was. You're actually doing it. And so you're exercising or empowering parts of your brain that have never been activated before, because you don't walk around under the notion that you can make a tree spring up from the ground or that you can levitate a car. But when you pass that threshold of belief, when you instill that kernel of absolute belief that you can make a tree spring up from the ground and you can program code into a computer with a thought, and there's no more doubt. Every bit of doubt has been removed because you're doing it every day. How does that translate to your waking life, or your life outside of that computer simulation? My thought is that there would be no difference. Once that doubt is eliminated, once those limitations of what you believe to be the laws of physics or the laws preventing you from having your thought just break free and form your reality are gone, those obstacles are eliminated, what would the effect be on your life and on your abilities as a human being, and on the minds of humanity as a species? And that's really what I pondered. You break the 4-minute mile, and then you break the telekinetic barrier.
Exact mind over matter.
Right.
And if you're immersing yourself, like you said, training your brain in a simulation long enough, perception is reality.
Exactly.
Now, how is that similar, and how is that different to the concepts in Inception, for example?
Well, I think Inception dealt more with dreams and the subconscious, and it was more about the secondary effects of dreams via the subconscious on your waking life. Whereas as in the God Wave, it's essentially happening now. There is no delving deep into the subconscious. There's no reprogramming. We don't get into that. What we get into is the actual effect on waking life, and the effect of essentially exercising mental muscles you've never exercised before. I think in Inception, they're using what is already there in a novel way. In the God Wave, we're building upon and breaking the barriers in what is already there, and also adding. It's interesting in the God Wave. There's an exchange where they're using mental muscles that we've never used before, and developing mental muscles is how I put it. It's true. I mean, it's like you're training a muscle you've never trained before, but it just happens to be in your neocortex, and now you can do more exciting things because you've never thought or exercised the brain in that way. And there's evidence constantly about neuroplasticity and the fact that new neural pathways are formed with different types of thought. And so imagine the new neural pathways that are formed when you believe, or when you're constantly, using architectural CAD design programs with the speed of your thought every day. Imagine the neuroplasticity that occurs in that event. And that's really what I'm trying to build upon here, and suggesting that may have a profound effect on the way that our species
I really like, Patrick, about the book is you merge real applied science to the fiction. And you lose yourself in it. You while you're reading, you forget which is fiction, which is reality, because it's so well written.
Thank you.
And it's really cool to get, I Googled a few things. What is that? And it's real. These things exist, some of the stuff. A lot of this in the book is real science. But then you apply it to this fictional realm, which is very, very cool. We got to run a break. We're going to get more into this. Patrick Hemstreet, don't go anywhere. The God Peak. More and more coming your way. Don't go anywhere. A lot more to uncover. Be right back right after this. After Hours AM will be right back after these messages.
Hi, Tom Bodette. If pop culture is to be believed, roughly 40% of all people are actually vampires, or dating one. Well, undead or not, you can always save on a clean, comfortable room at Motel 6, even if you sleep during the day because direct sunlight turns you into a pile of sparkly coffee grounds. Speaking of which, we have free coffee every morning. You day sleepers may want to go for the decaf. I'm Tom Bodette, and we'll leave the light on for you. Book online at motel6.com.
This is Jen McGowan, founder of Wayward Souls Promotions, a company dedicated to helping individuals, teams, radio shows, and others that are seeking exposure for their individual events, conventions, and shows. We offer a wide variety of advertising, such as web-based article, social media posts, podcast advertisement, and so on. Contact us at paranormalpromotion@gmail.com, visit us on Facebook at Wayward Souls Promotions, and visit our website at www.waywardsoulspromotions.com.
Welcome back to After Hours AM. And welcome back to After Hours AM, everybody. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis, right along with me,
Eric Olsen.
Oh, you are really quick like a bunny, man. You were
I'm
back, and
always
I
quick
didn't
like a
think
bunny.
you were going to make it. I really didn't think you were going to make
Always
it.
make unless I don't.
But, I'm sitting here, and I'm kind of reading the book again and talking at the same time, but one thing that grabs me, and it's actually in the synopsis of the book, is, let me just set the stage a little bit, is Chuck Brenton had a simple idea. If brainwaves can make the needles on a EEG machine move, why couldn't they be trained to move other things? Oof. Exactly. And that's, and that line.
Lightning bolt.
Before I even started reading the book, I looked at the Amazon synopsis, just really, really quick. And that line right there got me really, whoa, okay, this is going to be cool. Yeah, exactly. And I think that we don't give our minds enough credit, of course, before we dive totally into the book here, which we will be. But maybe we don't give ourselves as human beings enough credit of how truly awe-inspiring our own brains could be if we just let them be.
Yes.
That's a great answer. Yep, we are here.
You agree with that. Hey, what I wanted to get into, and please do kind of relate this to the stories, because we don't want it to stand apart, is I'm also really fascinated philosophically with using God in the title, and one of your recurring themes is very much sort of Frankensteinian, and that is where is the line when man strives to become more godlike? It goes all the way back, obviously, to the Garden of Eden. We wanted knowledge, right?
Right.
So where is that line, and where is that line in your book, and where do you think the line is in the real world? Does that line exist?
Well, I am the way it's described is as far as macrocosm and microcosm, and a human being a microcosm of a greater whole. And you always strive, the greatest desire or innate desire in a human being is to rejoin that macrocosm, to rejoin that whole, that Godhead, if I want to use the title of my third book, that to rejoin that whole, that unity, that Arthur C. Clarke called it the overmind. And I think that the first step on that road in my fictional universe was the emergence of the God wave. This idea that it's a harbinger that consciousness is moving up a level, and that our consciousness is evolving to the point where maybe that line between macrocosm and microcosm is not so clear cut anymore. Maybe we're in communication with that higher realm, that higher level of consciousness that binds everything. The force. I don't want to say it's the force, but it's this kind of, Adam Kadmon, us, all of us being shards of the original creation of God, actually reapplying itself and gaining knowledge and awareness of that, and understanding that everything is a part of the same whole. And, you have an end of violence, you have an end of evil, if that were realized.
Yeah. No, that makes total sense to me. And then, of course, the characters are so well written in the book. You really get a feel for them. I mean, how did you come up with such deep and dynamic characters?
Well, the characters kind of came to me, and that's what I tell people. They say, do you sit and just kind of force characters and contrive them in your mind? And the answer is really no. My creative process is more like a coffee percolator. I mean, when I was dreaming it up, the Chuck came to me, and then Matt came to me right after. And I can tell you that I don't want to name some of the characters because I want it to be kind of a surprise,
sure.
But there's a mysterious character in the book that I won't name, but I was on a run, and he came to me and said, I'm in the story now, and it was the same thing with Minnie. Minnie was on a run too. I was running, and Minnie just popped into my mind. It's almost as if they just kind of come in for a visit and say, all right, it's time for me I'm auditioning for your book now, sir. And that's really, it seems kind of weird or creepy, but the story flows into you. It's not
Joel, what does that remind you of?
Exactly.
Have we heard this before?
And for me as a radio host, the best results I get when I'm trying to be creative, thinking new angles for radio, do this, do that, is when my right mind is engaged, if I'm walking, running, or even driving. It's like that left brain has a chance to play a little bit. Because for me anyway, my right brain is all being taken up by that tactile use of my body and trying to keep everything going right. Then that creative side of me gets to come out and play. So that makes really a lot of sense to me.
It's again, I'm gonna use another trite phrase, but it's an organic process, I guess, where it's almost as if these stories are out in the ether, and you grab them and pull them down, or they find you and assert themselves through your mind. It's not you don't strain really hard and contrive the story. At least I don't. Maybe others do, but that's not how it works for me. And so these characters kind of came to me of their own accord and developed as I thought on the story, and they kind of developed of their own accord. If that even makes sense,
Did they literally become real to you? Because just last week, I mean, literally a week ago at this very time, in the second half of the show, we were talking to an author who had a character who he said he would literally not be surprised in the real world if he ran into that character, if he actually met that character. That's how real that character is to him.
I think that's you. I do believe that there is composite ideas, and maybe when you have ideas or notions of what you believe a certain person to be like, and you have an idea or a notion of what you think a sweet and shy person is like, or what you think a mean and foreboding person is like, and those are pulled from all the different people you've ever met and some other intangible aspects. So running into someone who is not necessarily a dead ringer, but has a great amount of aspects or the makeup of your character in a very similar way would not be an uncommon or outrageous suggestion at all. Because I do believe that there is a composite that you pull from all of your experience. And like I said, there isn't that intangible, spontaneous creation that happens outside of your will or outside of your conscious control. So that makes perfect sense.
And the book itself, Eric, I didn't mean to step on you, which I did. So
no, go ahead.
But the book itself is also, when I read it anyway, what I kind of got from it, aside from a great story, it's a bit of a cautionary tale, too, of us playing God, of that our creation coming back at us.
Yes, And that is really, but it's also the idea that when you embark on that road, you unleash, once you understand, once you pull back the veil, there's no turning back.
Mm-hmm.
And once you understand and once you breach that level of mystical or spiritual understanding, you can't unlearn it. It's, reality has changed for you. Life has changed for you forever. And there is a certain cautionary, mandate there, in that there are certain ethical and unethical behaviors when you do gain that kind of mystical understanding. And those have been written about in every single, esoteric manual or text since people started writing things down. And that's really the core of what I'm trying to, you can't, if you're going to study and you're going to attempt to elevate your consciousness, it must be for
mm-hmm.
the good of yourself and the good of humanity, or the good of the whole.
Sure.
Yeah.
That makes
kind of
perfect sense.
Circles back to my question: is there a line that mankind, should not cross in terms of striving to become godlike, or is that not really the question?
Well, I think that there's a rabbi, and I don't remember his name, but he was, and I always use this quote, but I don't remember the rabbi's name, and it kills me. But he said that there's one great purpose to life, and why this world was formed was that for humanity to defeat evil. That's
mm-hmm.
the whole point of life. And the one line you don't cross is to give in to evil.
Sure.
To allow that one, because obviously good and evil exist on the same line, it's just two ends of the opposite spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
But to give in to evil, to give yourself to evil, is the line that is the ultimate failure of yourself and of creation. Imagine if we all decided that, well, you know what, screw it, it's just easier to be evil.
Yeah.
Let's just go ahead and do that and let creation fulfill itself just by everything being evil. It would just be the most catastrophic failure of evolution since Noah's flood.
Yeah.
And so that to me is the line. You can do no evil, or you should not give in to evil.
Yeah.
And that's it, really.
Another great answer. I mean, really, you hit the nail around the head. That's the way I think too, is, if you do good, good will come. But if you do evil, evil will come.
Yes, absolutely. I like to read. I've read Isaac Bashevis Singer's Satan and Gorai, which is a very interesting book. It's about the idea that the world was created in order to determine if evil or good would win the day, as the rabbi suggested, or I mentioned earlier. Mm-hmm. And there was a group of people that suggested, well, why don't we all just do evil so that evil wins the day and this whole ordeal is over with? And I think that that's a flawed premise. The whole, and if you read the Bible, it's happened before, and the world was flooded because of it.
Yeah.
So it's that idea that's our mission for good to win, and for our whatever this is, this overmind, this idea that we all are in a collective unit, for that good to be the prevailing dominant emotion or vibration or frequency of this whole.
Patrick, reading the book, I also couldn't help but notice the parallel today too. I mean, I might be reaching here, but look at us at artificial intelligence. We're knocking on the door of absolute autonomous creatures that can think and problem solve and create their own languages and become infinitely, possibly smarter than us. What's your thought?
I'm not,
you know what I mean? It kind of, in a way, how things spiraled out of control could easily happen in the real world with some of the things we're dabbling with now.
Yeah, I don't think, as far as AI becoming a dominant force and the whole AI apocalypse where the machines kill us Matrix style and turn us into batteries, I don't necessarily believe that. Because, like I said, we don't fully understand consciousness, and I don't believe that an AI is going to suddenly become infused with consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe that no matter how sophisticated you make an AI brain, that's not going to happen. But Frank Herbert, who I'm a huge fan of, in Dune, obviously, human race becomes lazy and complacent because robots do everything, and we essentially sit around while our robot automatons feed us grapes. And evil men and leaders appropriate robots to conquer the rest of humanity. And so that's the danger, is complacency. Mm-hmm. This idea that things become so perfect that there is no longer any adversity, so people lose the motivation to strive for anything.
Sure.
And I don't think that hardship is good or that people should experience hardship. I'm not trying to say that, but I mean, if there's absolutely nothing to motivate you, mm-hmm. if you have everything you could ever want, I mean, imagine you live in a house that was built by robots in about 3 days. It's beautiful. Yeah. You're waited on hand and foot. Every need is taken care of by robots. What are you going to do with yourself? What are you going to strive for? What improvements are you going to seek?
And
Probably nothing.
It almost ends the human condition in a lot of ways, because unfortunately, part of the human condition is to struggle. That's just part of being human. That's just as much of us as doing good things or doing this or learning. I mean, it's just what makes us us, and that's what makes us persevere as individuals.
Right, and it's, I mean, the whole the idea that robots and AI are I mean, I think it's going to fundamentally change everything about our society, and it's more profound than the Industrial Revolution. It's more profound than the rise of blue water navies. It's going to be the biggest single change for humanity since the sun rose and a caveman stood up and grunted at it.
Well, what's funny is a lot of our listeners, though, they all go Skynet. Skynet's right around the corner. I said, no, it's not. Well, no, it's not. We're all good. Don't worry. But getting back to the book, and really, we're kind of veering once in a while away, and I know it's driving Eric nuts over there, going, come on, get back to the book. And we will, and it's really, again, really well written. It comes out August 22nd, Tuesday, August 22nd. Pick that bad boy up. Pre-order it now over Amazon, or Barnes & Noble will have it. Order through them, or any of the great bookstores out there. Right, Eric? Huh? I'm loving this book. Top 10, man. Top 10.
Well, thank you. I suggest you read The God Wave first, because The God Peak picks up exactly where The God Wave left off. And there's no break in time or action. It's just straight through. And so you'll get that experience if you read The God Wave now and get The God Peak next week. You'll get that movie marathon binge-watching experience. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
I was just to interject about what you guys were just talking about. The upside, I guess, or the positive side, the optimistic, very optimistic side, is if all of the main basic needs of mankind were met by robots, machines, etc., then in theory, again, the perhaps Pollyanna side of it is we would be left to spend all our time creating, being creative, and loving each other.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to think that that's true, and I do. There's a part of me that wants to believe that and thinks that there's a possibility for that. I think that, in a sense, if you have nothing to gain, nothing more to gain in your life, if you're completely content with every single aspect of your life, mm-hmm. and there's nothing more you could want, do you strive for anything? And that's the question. And will robots mm-hmm. give us that state? And that's the question. I don't know that they will. They may not. There may still be that inherent spiritual drive within us, and I'd like to think that it will remain. But imagine. You get out of bed in the morning and go to work because you want a house to live in.
Yeah.
You don't want to get rained on. If you take that away, even that much away, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
What's going to motivate you? And that's. I hope you're right, and I hope that we all have a spiritual longing and desire to go the path he described, and there's a part of me that wants to believe it and does believe it.
Well, the flip side is this, though. Idle hands or the devil's playground.
Yeah, it's indolence, and
Exactly.
like in the Time Machine, our deep future, people who are whatever they are, creatures, former people who have become so weak, and their bodies have just basically fallen into disuse, and it's all bad. The other thing, when you were just talking now, I was thinking there was one other element we could hope would remain, and that would be the spirit of adventure, the spirit of exploration, because there's no way we're going to explore this entire universe even in the next, million years. I don't think, anyway.
Right. No, you're right. The other thing is I hope we don't delegate that to robots.
Yeah.
Well. Let's just send the robots to Pluto,
Sure.
That there is still those intrepid souls that want to put a human foot, in the soil.
Yeah.
And that's, I'm really excited about things like the possibility of colonies on Mars and all that. I get really excited about that. So it's very, that kind of human experience, that explorer, that hitting the stars and building Mars One and all those kinds of things, extremely exciting to me.
Now, are you working on the third book yet? We're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves.
I'm working on the third book. I'm still in progress, still writing, yes.
Now, how long does it take you to bang one of these out? I mean, this is not a small book. This is a big book. I mean, it's last count that I'm up to is surpassed. Let me go flip to the back, and it's like almost a 400-page book here. I mean, it's 360. I mean, it's a big book. Is my point. I mean, how long does that take you from inception to creation in your mind?
So the just to all the aspiring writers out there, the average, the industry length for sci-fi is about 100,000 words, and that's the kind of the standard per book. The God Wave was completed in about 2.5 years from inception to completion. The God Peak was completed, in about a little under a year because it was a full-time effort.
Yeah.
I took time off, didn't do anything else. And so that's not the case now. I'm working and writing and raising 3 little boys and have my professional practice back up. So
Sure.
It's different, and that's really how it works. Or do you have the ability to sit and write 8 hours a day and come up with ideas 8 hours a day? And that's really dramatic. So it varies. It depends on your condition. The first one took the longest because there was a lot of batting around ideas and thinking of that, axing this. And the second one came a lot easier because the groundwork was already laid and it was a full-time effort.
Patrick, I got to say, these would make excellent movies. I got to say, I don't think it's going to be that much longer, and Hollywood maybe knock you at the door.
Well, I've got a movie option on the God Wave. I've already sold the movie rights.
Look at that, cool.
We haven't, so the options have been sold. But we don't have a full sale yet. But yeah, there was a lot of Hollywood activity, and we did sell the option earlier this year.
That will make a phenomenal film. I mean, but the thing of it is, though, for me, being a radio guy and you being a writer, our minds can conjure up such a vivid image that you could never recreate on film.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the whole trick, right? Is to do to give the audience that feeling that the readership experiences, to give them that inkling of a feeling, and to also give the readership something new with the film, so that they have a reason to go see it.
Yeah.
And so that takes a skilled hand, and I'm pretty happy with the optioners that purchased the rights of the God Wave. So I'm fully confident and happy that whenever product emerges from the God Wave is going to be in great hands.
Yeah, well, I just saw The Dark Tower, Stephen King property that he wrote. And I remember reading all those books, just gobbling them up as a kid. Oh, my God, The Dark Tower. I went and saw the movie. And in my mind, I remember vividly thinking to myself, watching the movie, wow, that looked a whole lot different in my mind's eye when I was reading these books. It's nowhere near as the film was nowhere near as majestic as what I had in my own head. So I was I let myself down with my own imagination.
Yeah, that happens. That happens quite often to those of us who draw castles in the sky. When someone else tries to draw it, it just never measures up.
Yeah.
Right. And no, I know exactly what you mean. I know exactly what you mean. Dune for me is kind of my, Frank Herbert is my favorite author, and I've read all the Dune, even the non-canonical, the Kevin J. Anderson, which I thought were really good, the final two, and I've never come across any kind of adaptation, film, TV, graphic novel that has even come close to what I've conjured up. I mean, in David Lynch's Sardaukar, the guys look like, welders from hell, and then in the sci-fi, they were like the evil Chef Boyardees.
Yeah.
And so I didn't, Sardaukar should be really badass looking. There shouldn't be dark chefs.
Yeah.
And so that I know that I know exactly where you are with that. And if that's where the guiding hand of the author as a consultant comes in, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right, and I think it's awesome that there's already movement on possibly movies of both. God Wave right now, and I know God Peak would make a absolutely stellar film. It's a great read. So again, it's coming out on the 22nd of August here. That'll be a Tuesday. Make sure you pre-order though. Go to Amazon. They're offering pre-orders right now of this book, so you can get it the day it drops. So there will be no waiting, because you may find out it's sold out at your favorite bookstore. So definitely check that out. Eric, man, you're a writer, and I imagine you really can relate to Patrick and what he's saying with the mind's eye and how the writers take on what's going on. It never quite, some ways measures up to what goes on film.
Oh, sure. The mind's eye is unlimited, right? Whereas with all the magic of film, and in these days with the computer generated, on top of what they can do with special effects, it still is not infinite. It still cannot match the mind. I agree entirely. Before we completely run out of time, we're down to the last couple of minutes. Patrick, tell people how they can get a hold of you. We've mentioned the book, of course. How can they get a hold of you? And just, are you going to be anywhere, appearing live? Just anything you'd like people to know.
On August 24th, I will be at Murder by the Book in Houston at 6:30, signing and talking and that kind of thing. You can hit me up anytime on Twitter. I'm at Hemstreet Author. I have my Twitter linked to my phone, so if you message me or ping me on Twitter, I will respond pretty much immediately. So that's the best way to reach me.
Very cool.
Fantastic.
Very cool. Yeah.
We are now buds on Twitter, too, I noticed. Yay!
Yes, indeed.
Do you Facebook at all? Or are you? I know there's a big Facebook crowd listening.
I do Facebook, and I will say that I'm, the Twitter does the notifications on my phone, so Twitter's instant Facebook, I have to check it every once in a while.
Gotcha.
But if I don't respond, I'm probably in surgery, so that's the only time I don't respond.
Yeah, you're a bit of a busy guy, and then there's the day job, so absolutely, we totally get that, but we're at the end of another show, Eric, and I gotta say, Patrick, thank you so much for coming on the show. Love the book. Keep cranking them out. Really enjoyable read. Again, that comes out August 22nd, right around the corner. That's Tuesday, August 22nd. Get your copy. Better yet, pre-order it right now at Amazon.com. In fact, I just noticed they're offering pre-orders, so you get the day it drops. So definitely do that. I'd like to thank everyone for listening and making After Hours AM the number one show of its kind anywhere, Eric. The numbers are in once again, and we are flying high. We want to thank everyone for making that happen. And I'm believing in us, and we'll keep believing in you. Until then, take care of each other, love each other. Until next week, stay cool and read the God Peak. Thank you for listening to this edition of After Hours AM, and please remember to like us on Facebook and also follow us over on Twitter.